Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Miranda, and for today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my latest acrylic painting process, which is this painting right here of a summer sunset overlooking a pond. There's a few ducks swimming around. I used acrylic paint for this painting and a live edge wooden plank as my canvas. I can't wait to share this painting process with you, but before we get into this, I just want to mention that I have previously uploaded the full paint and color mixing process video of the paint that I used in this painting. So if you'd like to look and see how I mixed the colors that I'm going to be using in today's video, you can find that right up here. As well, I have also uploaded a sped up version of this painting process for those of you who prefer a faster paced version of a painting process where I'm also not explaining how I'm creating the painting throughout the video. All right, and now that you have all that information, let's go ahead and get into this painting process. I have my reference photo on the left side of the screen so that you can see what I'm painting as I'm painting it. I took this photo this past summer while I was visiting Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario. And I really loved the colors that I captured in this photo as well. The ducks, the three little ducks in front of me were just so precious. So I'm really excited to create this painting. We're going to begin our painting by grabbing our lightest shade. And we're going to be working from the left hand side to the right hand side of our canvas. The sun is setting on the left hand side, so that's why we're using our lightest colors there. That's where the brightest section of the sky is. I've gone ahead and applied a more pale white toned, it has some purple in it as well, to the middle section there, and then below that I've gone ahead and applied our more pale yellow color, and we're just going to start blending those colors together. I'm using a 1-inch filbert brush to apply these shades, and I'm using a tapping and sweeping motion kind of back and forth to apply these colors. And as we, again, are moving from left to right, I'm going to be applying more yellow, specifically more towards the bottom of the sky, where you can see in our reference photo that it's more yellow toned. I'm grabbing some of my warm pink shade that I've mixed, and I'm going to start adding that and blending that into my yellow color that is on the canvas. And still using that same tapping and sweeping motion to blend the colors together. As you guys can see, I'm using a wooden canvas this time instead of a regular canvas. This is actually just like a solid, I believe it's a pine plank that you can use for either wood burning or any kind of, honestly, craft that you want to do, but I love painting on them. I just love the way that wood takes the paint when you apply it. I just think that it's really beautiful. So next, I've gone ahead and I'm grabbing some of my purple blue shade that I've mixed, and I'm going to be adding that to the top right corner of our canvas. That's where the darkest colors in the sky are going to be. As we move our purple shade from the right to the left side of our canvas, I'm going to be mixing my lighter colors that I was applying to the sky with my purple so that all of our colors blend together. I'm using the same swiping and tapping motion with my filbert brush to apply my paint. Now at the bottom right corner here, I'm going to be applying a more pink toned version of our purple to this section here, as this is where it gets to be a little more pink and dark at the bottom of this area. I'm making sure to try to create a very soft sky. Based on our reference photo, the colors are blended together very nicely. There's not really any harsh lines or any harshness. It really flows like from one lighter side of the left side to the right side very nicely. So I'm trying to create that same effect as I am blending my colors and making sure that it's very soft and blended as my reference photo is. You can also notice that with these wooden canvases, there are some natural markings in the canvas, like the rings of the wood. And with those, you just have to, well, what I do is I just apply more color and I try to, just incorporate that into the canvas as best as I can and just try to create, an illusion with it and try to just cover it up as best as I can. I'm going to go in now with a darker pink color, applying that into my sky, along with more of a peachy orange tone as well. And again, if you're wanting to know, where or how I created these colors, I have a whole separate video showing me creating and paint mixing all of my colors beforehand. So there is a link in the description box if you would like to see how I mixed my colors. But I'm going to just continue filling up the sky here. We are almost done painting our sky color. Just filling up any holes here and there and looking at my reference photo to know where I am going to be placing my colors. I'm a big fan of reference photos. I think that it's essential to have at least one reference photo when you are creating a painting. It just makes it a lot easier. And as you can see here, now I'm working on covering up this little wood spot, this darker spot of my canvas, and I'm just applying a little bit more paint to cover this up. But as you can see here in a second, it's going to look wonderful as if it didn't even exist in the first place. I'm finishing up any kind of details now in my sky, looking at my reference photo and seeing where any more colors I need to apply need to go. I'm going to go ahead and blend these pink darker tone at the bottom more with my lighter shades so that it's more blended together and not so harsh. And I'm kind of just taking a second to look at the sky, stepping back and just making sure that everything looks nicely blended where it needs to be blended. I believe that I need to apply a little more purple to this section here. So I'm going to go in and just put a little bit more purple into this right side of our sky and lightening up this bottom section a little more. It's definitely very purple toned over here. So I just want to make sure that that is prevalent. I'm going off and cleaning my brush a bit, wiping it in my water, and then wiping it here on my paper towel. And I'm going to apply a little bit more of a lighter shade as well here, a little bit more of a lighter pink to continue as we go and move down our canvas. I'm going to be applying our trees soon, so I want to make sure that behind the trees, there is the sky color as well. So I'm going to be bringing some color down a little bit further here so that behind the trees, you can see that there is paint and it's not just, not painted behind there. But again, I'm looking at my reference photo to see which colors I want to place in which area. I really love how the sky looks, though. It looks so like dreamy and fluffy and beautiful. I absolutely love how it's turned out. I'm really excited to be sharing this painting with you guys, and I hope that you're enjoying the process so far as well. But we're going to continue moving down, finishing up our sky colors. I'm applying a lighter yellow, peachy white color as we move down our sky. And now what I'm going to be doing is starting to add the reflection in the water of the sky. So I'm going in with my pink peachy yellow color, and I'm going to be, looking at my reference photo and my sky that I've already painted to accurately reflect the colors below. Beginning to map out my shape here, a little half circle, and moving a little bit more over here to the right. I'm still using my same filbert brush to apply this. Going to go in and add more of my darker pink to match my sky reflection as we move over more to the right and bring that up. Now I'm applying a lighter shade to this section of the right here. As we move further down the canvas, we're going to start adding darker colors. As you can see from the reference photo, the water gets darker as we move from the top area to the bottom. So I'm going to continue adding my darkest colors as we move down. Right now I'm using a lot of my darker pink, as that is definitely one of the most prominent colors in the water. So I'm really working on adding that and creating depth with the pink in the lighter areas that I've already added. And I'm also paying attention, like I mentioned before, to the movement of the water, making sure that I keep the shape that is present in the photo, in the painting. I'm still using my same filbert brush to apply this. I really love using this specific brush when I am painting on wooden canvases. As you can see as well, there is definitely a larger wooden dark section here that I'm painting over. I'm going to need to use a couple of layers to properly cover that darkness, just to make sure that it's illusioned well in the painting. So I'm going to keep going back and forth and covering that darker line there that you see. And then we're continuing to move down our canvas, and I'm starting to grab some of my darker purple and my pink, almost like a mauvey shade, and we're continuing to blend that down and also blending that up with the lighter colors that we already applied to our water. And you can see that I'm really trying to keep like that circular shape. Like, I'm paying a lot of attention to how I'm applying this color, because I need the shape to look like it's movement of water. That's something that's very important with water. If you don't accurately try to depict the movement, it won't look natural. So trying to do that as best as you can is definitely an important aspect of painting water. And now you can see that I'm doing is, when you're looking at the reference photo, you can kind of see the purple lines of the water as it blends in with the more turquoise blue green towards the bottom of the water. So I'm starting to apply those lines of purple, I guess you could say, in the water, so that we're able to see that clearly. And I've also switched now to a different brush. This is a Princeton Velvet Touch brush. It is a flat brush. I will have this and all of my other brushes linked below in case you want to look at these specific products if you're interested in them. And I've switched to this brush as it's going to be able to cover more surface area as we move farther down the canvas, and we're going to need to apply more paint. Now I'm going to go in with my more a blue, green, turquoise color of water, and I'm going to slowly blend this color in with my purples and my pinks that I've added to my canvas. And again, just looking at my reference photo to see where I want to place these colors. Using more of a sweeping motion to apply this color at this time. And then as we get down to the bottom, I'm going in with a darker shade. As you can see that it definitely gets darker really towards the left bottom section of the water. So I'm definitely making sure to create that contrast and add that darkness there where it's needed. And going in with a lighter version of my watercolor in between the darker sections so that we can create that movement and that depth. And then I've gone ahead and I've switched back to my filbert brush to again be able to get just a little bit more detail in this area. And as we move towards the side of the canvas, in that area of the water, we're going to be applying more purple and blending out the blue. And going in with that purple on the outer parts to blend in these colors together. And as well as we move up in the water, we'll be blending in all of these colors and making everything nice and soft. I'm grabbing some of my lighter purple and beginning to add more of that towards this section here. It was a little bit pink before, but I want to make that a little bit more purple to match the reference photo. So I'm going in and applying a little more purple on top of that. With water, with painting water, I definitely think it's something that can take a few layers and building depth over time. Sometimes it can be difficult to kind of render that look of water with just one layer of paint. So I definitely will be doing a few layers over the water to create as much depth and realism as possible. I'm looking at the reference photo and I'm looking to see where the purple, I guess the kind of more shadow colors are in this area, the middle area of the water. When you look at the reference photo, you can see that specifically towards where the ducks are as they're swimming forward in the photo, there is like ripples behind them, and that's more of a darker blue purpley color. So I'm taking time to make sure that I add all of these details in the water, as when I start actually painting the ducks, it will be very important to have that so that it all looks realistic and it doesn't look one-dimensional. You can see that I'm definitely creating smaller strokes at this time and going in with my lighter yellow color, and I'm applying some highlights in my section here, and you can see how this is really starting to create the depth and the movement in the water. I'm loving how this is actually coming out so far. This painting is very, very enjoyable for me to do. It's not too difficult, you know, there's not too much going on, but then when it comes to actually painting the ducks, that will be something that's definitely more technical. So I'm excited to get to that part, but right now this is very, very fun, and I enjoy painting scenes like this with water and the sky and nature. These are my favorite things to paint. So hopefully you're enjoying this process as I'm doing it. I'm really enjoying showing you guys so far where we've gotten. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to start applying some paint here where, excuse me, closer to the tree line, where I'm soon going to be applying my trees. So I want to make sure that I'm aware of that section where I'm wanting to put them. And I'm mixing more of an orangey color here. What I'm going to do with this color is I'm applying this, as when you look at the reference photo, it looks as if there's almost like a orange, and like the sun is really behind the trees. Like you can kind of see that if you look closely at the reference photo, that there is like orange behind the trees where the sun is beaming on the tree line. So I'm applying this color first, so that way when I apply my green and my actual colors for the tree, you're able to see this color behind that. just to add more realism and to make it really look like, the sun is shining behind the trees. This is something that I've started doing lately is I will apply the color of, let's say, the sunlight that I want to see behind my tree line, and then therefore it'll make it look more realistic once everything is painted and put together. I'm using a smaller fan brush to apply this color. This is again from the Princeton A Velvet Touch collection. I'll have that brush linked below. And then I'm just making sure that there is some sort of paint and sky color in this area, as the tree line from left to right, it's going to be getting smaller as we're moving to the right. So I want to make sure that there's paint there in case the trees are not reaching that section. We got to make sure that there's paint back there and it's not just plain. And on this right side of the tree line, I'm also going to be applying that orangey yellow color so that is shining behind the trees. And now we're going in and we're going to actually apply the bottom line of our tree line, just sketching out a general section of where I want the trees to be. And again, making sure that from left to right, it will be getting smaller. And I'm going to start also applying the reflection of the tree line in the water, as I'd like to just kind of map out the start of that as well. And I'm using that same fan brush to apply this. Just kind of doing a swiping motion from the top of that tree line downward in the water. And I'm applying this very lightly, especially as we move from left to right. It will be less saturated in color, so I'm making sure to continue to pay attention to that. And now we're going to go back to the top section of the trees and actually apply the trees itself. And we're going to be applying our darkest color first, starting at the left-hand side of the tree line. And I'm just looking at my reference photo to see where the dark sections are and just starting to map that out. And then as we're moving here on the right side, I'm applying less color and applying it in a softer motion so that it's not as saturated on this side. And we are applying a lighter color of green towards the tips of the trees so that it naturally blends nicely upwards. And just doing a tapping motion of where I want the tops of the trees to be. And looking at my reference photo to see what the shapes of the trees look like to try to match that as accurately as I can. Going back in with my larger flat brush, I want to darken where the tree line and the water meet. So I'm going to apply some darker color there, as well as blending it up to help add some color to the tree. Switching to a smaller filbert brush, I believe this is a 1/2 inch brush, and I'm continuing to add some green to our trees. I'm applying a lighter green towards the top. And just continuing to add to our trees. The thing that I love about painting trees and like forests in the distance is that it really doesn't take that much to make it look like a forest. Like, it's not that difficult. It's very easy, and I feel like at first it kind of just looks like a blob of color, but then as you continue, you can slowly see it coming together. And what I'm doing here is I'm applying a lighter color to create some actual like tree trunks and branches. As you can see in the reference photo, there is in the distance, you can faintly see the trunks and some tree branches in the tree line. So I'm just applying some of that to further create some realism in there. I've gone ahead and I've switched my brush. This is a Princeton Aqua Elite flat brush. This is a 1/2 inch brush that I'm using now, and I'm working on the far side of the tree line here, and I'm just slowly building up the color, building up the shadow color specifically with this brush, and just going back and forth from the left side to the right side and applying color to both sections. I'm just looking at my reference photo, and based on where I see the shadow dark colors there, that's where I'm placing this color on my canvas. And now I will continue working on the reflection of the trees in the water. I'm going ahead and I'm applying a lighter color for the tips of the trees here in the water. And I'm just really not being very specific with how I'm applying this color, just loosely applying that and trying to make it look as diluted and watery as possible to keep that realism of the water. Drawing out a couple of tree trunks here with a lighter color using that same brush. I've switched back to my filbert brush, and I'm going to apply the land here. So I'm just sweeping some color from the left to the right side. to distinguish where that small portion of land is between the tree line and the water. Switching back to my fan brush to continue to add some leaves and foliage to my trees. And going in with a lighter green color to start adding some highlights and midtones. And on the very tips of the trees, I'm going in and I'm applying more of that orange tone colored that I was applying behind the trees originally. I'm going in and I'm applying that to the tips of the trees as well. I'm pretty much done working on the trees themselves. I'm gonna now start really focusing more on the reflection of the trees in the water. I'm applying my dark shadow color to really define this bottom section here. It's very dark here where the tree's reflection initially hits the water, so I'm trying to emphasize that as much as I can. And I'm using my fan brush to apply this color. On this right side, I'm going to start bringing down my color for my tree reflection in the water. And I've mentioned this earlier, but if you're wanting to know which colors I'm using, how I got these colors, I have a whole video that I created that is showing how I mixed these paint colors. So I'll have a card up here if you'd like to go and refresh yourself and your memory as to how I mixed these colors. I'm going in and I'm starting my bushes in the front section. I'm starting off with my darkest shadow color using my filbert brush. And I'm just starting to sketch out the bush at this point. Where I see the darkest colors in my reference photo, that's where I'm putting this color. Just using a light tapping motion to apply this color, specifically near the top tip parts here. I don't want to apply too much color. And then moving over to this right side and doing the same thing, just going to start sketching out my bush and where I want it to be. Switching back to my fan brush to continue slowly making my bushes here. And fan brushes are really good for any type of tree or shrub or leaf of any kind. Fan brushes are really, really nice to have. They just add the perfect like shape and the perfect consistency when it comes to painting out shrubs and trees and bushes and whatnot. I'm going to start applying more of my yellow toned green, my mid-tone color, and sketching out my bush here using my fan brush. And I'm just using a tapping motion to apply this color, holding it very lightly, using a very light hand to start. And then going back in with my shadow color and continuing to build up the different tones. And I'm going back to my left bush over here, and I'm doing the same thing that I just did on the right side. And I'm just going to keep slowly building my bushes and using different tones to create them. I'm also working on the reflection of the bushes as I'm slowly creating the bushes themselves. And I'm just going back and forth from my one side, my left side to my right side, and applying color to both and just slowly building them. I want them to try to look as not symmetrical, but I do want them to look similar as they're both, the same type of plant, the same type of bush. So I want to make sure that they are looking similar in the terms of shape, color, and that. So I've been trying to just make sure that they look similar, and as well, just constantly looking back at my reference photo to know where I want to put my colors. I often describe, and I feel like for myself, paintings are kind of like a puzzle for me. Like you're slowly putting together the pieces to make it look like the picture or whatever you're wanting it to look like. So I've always thought of painting that way, and I think it's kind of a fun way to think of it. It's just like a puzzle that you're trying to slowly put together. I'm going in with more of a lighter mid-tone color, and I'm going to start filling in all of my little empty spaces that you see in here. And there are certain sections of my bush where at the front it might have some lighter sections, so I'm just going in and I'm applying that as well. And then I always go back in with my shadow color to create that depth and contrast, which is really necessary. Another reason why I love this canvas that we're using here is because it's almost like it has a natural frame around it. Like it looks so pretty, especially as we're like finishing up the painting slowly, and color is all over the canvas now. It really looks so nice together. That's why I really love using these pine boards for painting. Like my favorite surface to paint on is definitely these pine or wooden canvases. I absolutely love them. I'm going in with my big fluffy brush just to kind of dilute and get rid of any harshness that was used while I was applying my color. I'm now going in with a smaller, more detailing brush. I'm going to start applying my little leaves and tips of my branches now. This is also a Princeton Aqua Elite brush. I'll have all of the brushes and the sizes that I've used linked below in case you want to go check these out as well. I'm starting to apply more of my water and my watercolors here towards the bottom of this bush where I'm doing the reflection. So I've switched back to my filbert brush and I'm using more of my purpley toned blue color to continue to apply this to the canvas, and just blending this into the other sections of the water that I've already applied. I really love how you can see the movement of the water in this painting, though, the way that it is in the photo. I'm really happy that I was able to kind of capture that movement, and honestly, I love this painting. I love how it's turning out. I hope that you guys love it so far too. And hopefully it's an easier painting to paint, at least at this point. I don't think that it's been too difficult of a painting. The duck part is definitely more difficult, was more difficult for me, was more complex, but at this point till now, it's definitely been a nice, easy, simple, not too stressful of a process, just a nice, relaxing painting to do. It also hasn't taken that much time. I mean, we haven't even been filming for an hour, and we've applied a lot to the canvas, so. But we're going to continue. I'm just applying my water here towards the bottom of the canvas where my bush reflection is below there, so I'm just continuing to work on this section. Applying a little bit more of my darker watercolor to create a little bit more contrast and darkness in this section. And what I'm doing here is I'm just applying a few more details to my tree line back here. Just adding a few more little dots of color here and there where I think it is needed. Specifically, I'm using my shadow color, my dark toned green right now to apply that. And adding a bit more darkness to this section here where the ground meets the water. One thing that I really like to do for my paintings and for my style is I really love to use like extremely dark colors and then extremely light colors. I love to create like the contrast and the difference between the light and the dark. It's something that I really love to have in my paintings. I really just love that. And that's something that I definitely do in my paintings a lot. There will be a lot of contrast and a lot of highlights and all of that good stuff. But I really think that that's what's needed in paintings. Like if you don't have that, then I just feel like it looks very like stale and one-dimensional almost and very flat. But when you're not afraid to really like experiment with the light colors and the dark colors, I just really feel like it adds a whole other level of depth and perception that like you wouldn't get if you were just using more tones that were similar in color and they weren't like so drastic in between the difference between the light and the dark. But really at this point, I'm just finishing up my tree line. Even these details I don't feel like are exactly necessary, but sometimes I just really like to be a perfectionist and I like to just fiddle around in detail for a while. And just bringing my tree reflection in the water down a little bit. I noticed that looking at my reference photo, it should be brought down a little bit further to meet my my bush in this area, so I'm just bringing this reflection down a little bit more to match my reference photo. And then just bringing all of that color down a little bit along the reflection of the trees in the water. We're moving in a little bit closer here as we're going to be working on this part of the water where if you look at the reference photo, you can kind of see where the trees reflect in the water. There's almost like these purpley little spots on top of that. That's like lily pads in the distance where the sun's reflecting. That's why it looks like that color. So I'm going to slowly start adding these little lily pads and water plants in the distance. And I'm using my smaller round brush from Princeton, the Aqua Elite brush, to start adding this to my canvas. And I'm just using a tapping motion. I'm looking at my reference photo to see where I'm applying this color. And then just tap, 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 tap to apply that. The lily pads that are the farthest in the distance, I am making sure to keep those the smallest, and then as we move forward and closer to the front of the photo, I will be making the lily pads larger. But this is definitely a part of the painting where I feel like you can be very free. It's almost hard to see these little lily pads in certain areas of the painting. Like you can really only see them over top of the green part where the tree reflection is. So don't have to be so precise with doing this. I'm really just looking at my reference photo and just putting these wherever I see that they should be based on my photo. I'm working now on my left side of my canvas where the lily pads are in this area, and these ones are naturally going to be a little bit larger than the ones that were on the right side because the ones on the right side are farther in the distance. And then slowly I'm bringing these downward towards the water. Just gonna put a few more little tiny dots here and there on this right side. I do really think that these little lily pads helped tie the painting together, like the water, the colors of the more pink and purple, and then with the green. I feel like it helped make it all more cohesive. And I like the way that they look for sure. I'm now using my flat brush from Princeton to continue to add some shadows into my water. So I'm using my purple tone of my water, and I'm applying small brush strokes where I can see in my reference photo that there is this color that's adding to like the movement of the water. Since there's the ducks that are swimming, they are, obviously creating ripples. So I'm kind of creating those ripples in the water, and I'm using that a darker purple color to do so because that is what color it is in my reference photo. You can kind of see that the movement of the water, it kind of comes from the right into the left and then circles into the center. And then it's pushing out again from like the bottom of the photo. So I'm definitely trying to keep attention to that movement and make sure that I paint that movement, because that will be important when I actually paint the ducks, which we will be doing very shortly. We'll be adding our ducks here. And I'm just doing a light kind of a sweep motion where I want these little strokes to be. And you can really see how it's like I'm not applying a lot of color, but it really does make a difference in how the water looks and in the realism aspect of it. Definitely helps bring it to life. I've switched more to a blue toned, my blue toned gray water, and we're continuing to add those shadow ripples. Slowly working our way down the canvas. And then bringing some of that back around again. I'm using some of my lighter purple now to just continue adding some highlights. Now that we've worked considerably on the water, I really like how it's looking. We're going to move back now to our bushes. I'm going in and I'm using more of a mid-toned green color, more of a cool toned green, and I'm just filling out some of that middle section of my bush. And by looking at my reference photo, you can see that on this left side bush that I'm working on, there's areas towards like the bottom section of it that there's lighter leaves. So I'm now working on that and just now working on more detailing parts of my bushes. Before I was being very like loose with my brush strokes and using a larger brush, and now I have gone to smaller brushes and I'm going to be doing more detailed work. And I'm going back and forth between my different tones, my mid-tone and my highlights. I also have more of a orangey yellow green that I've mixed that I will be putting towards more of the tips of the shrubs and the bushes where the sunlight is really hitting it. So I'm going to be going back and forth with these different colors to create dimension and to continue creating our bushes here. And as well, I'm working on the reflection of the bush in the water using the same colors, but the reflection is quite dark. It's just a very dark color. There's not as much color variation in the reflection of the bush than in the actual bush itself. So I'm going to be using more muted tones for the reflection in the water. And really just using a little color and very diluted color as we get to the bottom of our water reflection to really blend that in with the water. Just to make it really look like it is water. We're trying to do and make this as realistic as we can. So and the main brush that I've been using from this is my 1/2 inch, sorry, not 1/2 inch, but a 1/2 inch flat brush, my Aqua Elite brush from Princeton. I'm using mostly my Princeton Aqua Elite brushes to create this painting, as well as a couple of other brushes, which I will have listed down below for you to check out. And now I'm doing very detailed little strokes, kind of where I see little branches. That's where I'm kind of putting that now. And using my lighter green now to highlight this one section here where it's has some lighter leaves. Just adding a few little water leaf plant like things here that I see in the reference photo, just very lightly adding that. Working on our right side now, we're going to continue adding our shadows to this bush over here. And continuing to build the reflection in the water and just generally just creating this bush over here. I will be going back and forth with my highlights and my midtones and my shadows to create my bush. And switching in between brushes to have different brush strokes. And just bringing our reflection of our bush a little bit farther up in the painting. And as I continue to work on the reflection of my shrub or my bush in the water, I will have my paint be more diluted so that it has that more look of being water-like. So I do dilute my paint when I'm doing the reflection of something in the water versus the actual object itself. I will have a lot more of, I guess, a thicker paint. I'm just continuing to work on this reflection and blend my color downward. I'm grabbing my 1/2-inch fan brush and I'm going to start applying some of my lighter green using this brush. Applying a little bit of some branches here using a flatter brush. And then again, grabbing some of my lighter green and using that same brush, I'm going to start applying that color. I started applying some of that color, but felt that it was a little bright, so removing a bit of that. Going back to adding some more of my shadow and my darker color to continue to build my contrast. I'm going back and forth between my two shrubs and just adding any color or any other elements that I feel that I should add to them, as well as working on the reflection in the water as well. Going in again with my lighter green and adding some more leaves to the tips of my bushes. And working that color downward where I see it in my reference photo. Just using a very light tapping motion to apply that color. So I have gone ahead and I did start sketching out my ducks a bit off camera. I just really needed to kind of place them properly. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start adding more color and slowly building them up. I'm going to be starting with my duck that's farthest in the distance, and I'm going to be working on its body first, applying some of my darker colors first, and I'm really just looking at my reference photo. I know it's difficult to kind of see the details of the duck, in the photo on the side here because it's not zoomed in, but I have zoomed in and I'm looking at the details, and that's how I'm knowing where to apply my color. And I'm still using that same flat brush, my Aqua Elite brush from Princeton. I went ahead and switched to my longer round brush as I was needing a little bit more detail here. And I'm continuing to work on my one duck here. I'm going back and forth between my different tones and colors. I'm now kind of working on the front part of the duck and more of its neck and its face, and I'm applying some of my darker shadow color. Bringing the head around and bringing that back down to attach to the neck. And I'm going to bring that body of the duck around a little bit more on this right side here as well. And then continuing to detail the little face as well. With this part of the painting, I feel like it's more important to really, stick to looking at my reference photo and making sure that I'm trying to be as realistic as possible. With anything that's kind of like an object or an animal, a person, those things, require more detail and more focus to make it look realistic, where I feel like things that are in nature, like trees and bushes, water, those have like a lot of variation in the way that they can look. But when it comes to how a duck looks, I mean, people know how a duck looks. So if you don't pay attention to the details, it can look not right. So I'm definitely going to take my time here and just slowly create my ducks and try to make them look as good as I can. I'm continuing to work more on my shadows and creating some more depth here, and working on the body and trying to make the kind of feathers. But this is very small detailing, obviously, as you can see. I mean, it's very, very tiny. So, can only do so much, I'm liking how I've got the face of my duck, so I'm not going to work on that anymore. Just the body. Adding some more highlights here. We're going to zoom in a little closer here so that you guys are able to see more of the detailing that I'm doing. So I'm finishing up my one duck back here, just really adding the final little brush strokes. Some final highlights and little shadows. Fixing up any shape like this neck here, I feel like needs to have a little more there. Add a little highlight on the nose. And go back in with some of my shadow color to help, add the dimension in there and fix up the shape and whatnot. All right, and now we're going to be moving on to our second duck here. We're finished with the one in the back. And again, similarly to how I started my previous duck, I'm going to be starting with the duck's body in the back here and looking at my reference photo to see where I want to apply my color. This is more of like a mid-tone color I'm using here. I've already sketched out, as you can see, some of the shadow of the duck so far. And I'm switching between my flat brush and my long round brush to apply these colors. Continuing to work on the body of my duck and just slowly building up the color. I'm going in with my darker color, my shadowy color. It's like a gray black, and I'm using that to continue to grow like the depth in my duck and continuing to build the shapes of the feathers and the wings. And then just bringing the duck's body back a little bit further. And then I'm going in with my lighter highlight color as you know, if I really zoom in with the reference photo, which is what I'm doing when I'm creating the ducks, I can see the tones and the highlights and the shadows more easily. It might be difficult to kind of see it when it's totally zoomed out, but when you can zoom in, you'll be able to see the exact colors and like where the highlights are, where the light is hitting the back of the duck and where it's hitting the different parts of its body, and similarly to where the shadows are in the midtones. And I'm going to remove some part of this section here. Don't want this to actually be, I want to end the duck a little earlier, I guess. So I just putting some pink over top of there. And I'm continuing also to work on the reflection of the duck in the water in front of the duck where its shadow is hitting the water. And also on the sides here, continuing to add the shadows and the ripples where the duck is swimming. And I'm going back and forth between my two Princeton brushes, my one flat brush, and then my other is the longer detail round brush. And then continuing to add some more of a highlight on the side of my duck here where the light from the sun will be hitting it. And then going back in with my shadow color as well. Bring that around to the back. I'm definitely like working on the shape of the duck. Like that to me will be a very important detail. Like I feel like if the shape is not right, you'll be easily able to tell that it's not correct or it doesn't look right. So I'm trying to work on the shape and just make sure that I can accurately depict it as closely as I can to a duck and like what I see in my reference photo as well. I like how each of these ducks are in different positions because it gives me the opportunity to work and, you know, practice different angles of the duck. So I like how I have like almost every angle when I am painting these. It gives me all the practice that I need to be a duck painting expert. Continuing to work on like the shadow of the duck in the water, and I'm going in with my pink watercolor and then going back in with my darker shadow color to create the depth in the water and build up that shadow and ripple effect. And the shadow is darkest closest to the duck and then dissipates as we move forward. So I'm making sure to emphasize that as well. Going back in on the right side of my duck, and also going to be working on the left side and adding a few more highlights. And as I was finishing my second duck, my camera did die, so we're going to be moving on now to our final duck in the front. And I have changed the camera angle a bit. I think it will be easier to kind of see the detailing specifically in the face of the duck. But I'm going to work on first bringing the body around and just correcting the shape of the duck a little bit first to better match what I see in the reference photo. And using a very dark black almost shade, my shadow color, to create this. And I'm also kind of creating like little feathers as well, and little ripples in the water. We're just going to continue to build up that darker color. And then keeping the areas that I want to have highlighted, we will not put any color there. We'll just keep that the way it is right now. But we're almost done this painting. I'm very excited, and I'm loving how the ducks are looking so far, guys. So I hope that you have enjoyed this process so far, now that we're getting close to the end. But continuing now to go in with more of like a gold brown green color that I mix specifically for my ducks, that I have put in the front section here of the little almost duck chest there, and then going in with a even lighter highlight color to further emphasize the highlight where the sunlight is hitting. Now I've gone in and I've further darkened the neck of the duck to create some nice dimension, and just continuing to add that darker color wherever I see it prevalent in my reference photo. And then bringing that around to the front. Continuing to drag that around to the back. I'm going in and I'm making the head of the duck a little bit flatter. I've noticed that the duck head kind of has like a little bit of a, it's not like super round, like there are some like flat edges to the front of it, so I'm just kind of correcting that shape. And continuing to work on the duck's reflection in the water, using a lighter shade of my shadow color, I guess, than what I'm actually using on the duck itself to start. And then, as I mentioned, as we get closer to the duck, the shadow will be darker in the water, and then as it moves further away, it will dissipate more and more. And I'm really not applying a lot of color, as you guys can see. I'm being very, very light-handed, and I honestly feel like less is more when it comes to very small details and little things like this. Like, you don't need that much. Like, for instance, you can even see that in the duck itself, where I just left the space between the dark shadow color and where, like, the water color is just, you know, in the duck where I didn't paint over it. That itself creates lovely highlights, and I like to emphasize the natural highlights as much as I can that are kind of just like prevalent as you're painting. Like those things are really pretty. Even in the face of the duck, like there's that little bit of pink there on the side and like near the front, and it really just looks wonderful, I think. So I just try to be very light-handed when I'm doing these little details, specifically with little creatures like this because they're very small that I'm working on right now. And going back in with my lighter watercolor to break up the shadow, and now I'm going back in and I'm detailing the back feathers of my duck now. I'm almost finished working on him or her. I'm not sure. Actually, if it's a male or female, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But we're just putting our last little details on our duck here in the front. Adding a few more highlights to the back. Just drawing out my little wing there. Adding a few more little shadows. Like I said, I can be very perfectionist, so sometimes I work on things for a while. Not that everything is always necessary, but to each their own. Whatever you want to add, whenever you want to stop, it's up to you as the artist. So just continuing to finish up my little details here and there. Going back into my second duck. And just add in whatever I feel needs to be added to finish up. One final little detail, and that is it, guys. We have finished this painting. And that is the end of this painting process video. I hope you enjoyed it, that you were able to learn a few things from watching it, and hopefully you're able to create a similar painting in your free time. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Please like and subscribe and comment below any of your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.